Before starting, please like, share, and subscribe us for more chilling stories. I had never been the kind of person who believed in ghosts or the supernatural. That all changed one cold November night, when I found myself stranded at the last train station on the line. It was late, and I had just finished a long day at work. The project I'd been working on had run late, and by the time I got to the station, I realized I'd missed the second-to-last train. There was only one more train scheduled to come through, and if I missed it, I'd be stuck in the city for the night. I just wanted to get home. The station was old, crumbling brick walls and flickering lights. It was the kind of place you could tell had seen better days, the kind of place where you wouldn't be surprised to find a stray cat or a couple of pigeons roosting in the rafters. But tonight felt different. There was something in the air, a heaviness that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The platform was almost empty, save for an old man sitting on a bench at the far end. He was dressed in a worn coat and hat, kind you'd see in black and white movies from decades ago. He sat with his head down, hands clasped on his cane, staring at the ground. I nodded in his direction, but he didn't acknowledge me. He just kept staring at the ground, as if lost in thought. I checked my watch. It was nearly midnight, and the train was due any minute. I could hear the distant rumble of the engine, the sound growing louder as it approached. I sighed in relief. Soon, I'd be on my way home, away from this strange, lonely place. As the train pulled into the station, I noticed something odd. The windows of the train were dark, and I couldn't see anyone inside. Normally, even on the last train of the night, there were a few other passengers, but this train looked completely empty. The doors hissed open, and I hesitated for a moment. Something about the train felt wrong, but I shook off the feeling. It was late, I was tired, and I just wanted to get home. I stepped inside and took a seat near the door. The doors closed with a soft thud, and the train began to move. The carriage was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the engine and the occasional rattle as the train sped down the tracks. I glanced around, expecting to see the old man from the platform, but he wasn't there. I hadn't seen him board, but I hadn't seen him leave the platform either. I told myself he must have decided to wait for the next train, though I knew there wouldn't be another one tonight. As the train picked up speed, I noticed something strange. The lights inside the carriage flickered, casting long shadows across the empty seats. The windows were completely black. I couldn't see anything outside. It was as if the train was hurtling through a void, nothing but darkness on all sides. I tried to shake off the growing sense of unease, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the feeling only grew stronger, an oppressive weight pressing down on my chest. The silence was unbearable, and I found myself straining to hear any sound at all, anything that would break the suffocating quiet. Suddenly, the train lurched, and the lights went out completely. I was plunged into darkness. The only sound, the pounding of my own heart. I gripped the edge of my seat, my knuckles white, as the train continued to speed through the darkness. Panic began to set in. I fumbled for my phone, hoping to use the flashlight to see, but when I pressed the power button, the screen remained dark. The battery had been at 50% when I boarded, but now it was completely dead. As I sat there in the pitch black, I started to hear something. Faint whispering, just on the edge of hearing. First, I thought it was the wind, or maybe the sound of the train on the tracks, but the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They seemed to be coming from all around me, but when I looked, there was no one there. I told myself it was just the sound of the train, but the whispers continued to grow, the words becoming clearer. It was a low, raspy voice, speaking in a language I didn't understand. The tone was menacing, filled with anger and malice, and the sound sent chills down my spine. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, intending to move to another carriage, but as soon as I did, train screeched to a halt, throwing me off balance. I grabbed onto a pole to steady myself, but the train remained motionless, the whispers now a cacophony of voices surrounding me. In the darkness, I could feel something watching me, something malevolent. I felt its eyes on me, its presence growing stronger with every passing second. I needed to get out of there. I stumbled toward the door, my hands trembling as I tried to pry it open, but it wouldn't budge. I pounded on the door, shouting for help, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. The whispers were so loud now that they were deafening, filling my mind with a sense of dread so intense I could barely think. Just when I thought I would lose my mind, the lights flickered back on, and the train began to move again. The whispers stopped as suddenly as they had begun, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. I collapsed back into my seat, gasping for breath. The train was moving faster now, the lights flickering overhead as it raced through the night. I didn't dare move, didn't dare make a sound, afraid that the whispers would return. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the train began to slow. I looked out the window, hoping to see the familiar lights of my station, but all I could see was darkness. The train came to a stop, and the doors slid open. I didn't hesitate. I bolted from the train, my legs shaking as I stumbled onto the platform. I expected to see the station, but when I looked around, I realized I had no idea where I was. The platform was old and crumbling, the tiles cracked and covered in grime. The walls were lined with graffiti, and the only light came from a single flickering bulb overhead. There was no one else in sight, and the air was thick with a damp, musty smell. I turned to look at the train, but it was already gone, the darkness swallowing it whole. Panic surged through me as I realized I had no idea where I was or how to get home. I tried to find an exit, but the station was a maze of dark, narrow corridors that seemed to go on forever. The further I went, the more lost I became, until I was completely disoriented, unable to tell which way I had come. The whispers began again, faint at first, but growing louder with every step I took. I tried to block them out, but they were relentless, filling my head with their insidious words. I don't know how long I wandered those dark, twisting corridors, but eventually I found myself back on the platform, right where I had started. The light overhead flickered and went out, plunging the station into darkness. And then I saw him, the old man from the platform, standing at the edge of the tracks, his eyes glowing with that same pale, sickly light. He smiled at me, a cold, cruel smile that sent a wave of terror through me. "Welcome," he whispered, his voice echoing in the darkness. "You're just in time for the last train." Before I could react, the sound of an approaching train filled the air, the rumble growing louder as it neared. I turned to run, but my feet felt like they were stuck to the ground, the whispers now a deafening roar in my ears. The train barreled into the station, its headlights blindingly bright, and as it passed, I felt a cold wind rush over me, pulling me toward the edge of the platform. I tried to scream, but no sound came out, the darkness closing in around me. The last thing I saw before the train took me was the old man's smiling face, his eyes glowing with that same eerie light. And then, there was nothing but darkness.